version?
Yeah, no, good question. Yeah, we did. I did a lot of research into Olympus Mons, for example. You know, they're the biggest crater, the size of France, and looked at a lot of NASA photographs. In fact, the opening shot of the movie, we start in space and we travel all the way through. You can see the sort of canals of Mars, or what Edgar Rice Burroughs thought were the canals of Mars. And we travel all the way through the clouds right down into the landscape, and then integrated the sort of Utah landscape into that. But yeah, a lot of reference to it. But then again, you know, we needed to make sure that it fitted in with the live action stuff that we shot when we were in Utah. So a little bit of one and half of the other. But yeah, as you will, you know, I'm sure notice from the film, you know, Andrew's very grounded into, you know, make it photoreal. That's the most important thing. You know, we don't want a sci-fi movie for a sci-fi movie's sake. It's got to feel like you're really there. So live action photography and yeah, a good pinch of what Mars would really be like is what we ended up with.
I think Andrew said that you wanted this film to feel like a period film about a place we know nothing about, and that was so. It ends up being a stylized version of Mars, but for good dramatic reasons.
We didn't go for the sort of red sky, which you know traditionally people think Mars would look like. In fact, a sunset on Mars would be purple. That's how geeky I've turned out to be.
Story goes alive here.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thanks for that. There's a gentleman in the 1, 2, 3, 5th row. There you go. Put your hand up. And then there's a gentleman here with us now.
Hi. Sorry. Was the film always conceived as a 3D movie? And at what point in the production, let me start again. Was the film always conceived as a 3D movie? And what considerations do you need to kind of take in order to make that happen?
The movie was going to be 3D. We knew pretty much when we started shooting that it was going to be 3D. We decided not to shoot it in 3D, mostly because of the CinemaScope lenses and that feel that we wanted to go. The DOP definitely wanted to shoot it for real in that way. We dimensionalized it afterwards, which has been done badly in some cases in the past. And I can tell you that this process has been done very well. It's the best work I've seen, and I think you'll be pleased with the result. There are considerations, especially animation-wise, about why we would, you know, we took into account how the shot would be done and displacement was.
Yeah, I think in animation terms, it reduced the amount of cheating we could do.
Yeah.
We have to cheat, cheaters, big cheating. So we have to make sure that, you know, if Taylor's in the shot and Tars are standing right next to him, he has to stand right next to him in order to cast the shadows, in order to make sure that when you see it in 3D, that they look like they're sharing the same dead space, as we would call it, depth of the camera. So that presented us with just basically like a set of handcuffs. It still worked, but you're kind of limited in what you can do in some cases. But it kept us honest. But the other thing is, if you asked Andrew about the 3D aspect of it, I think he would be very honest with you and tell you that he had enough on his plate with making this film, his first live action film. It's a very complicated film to make from a visual effects standpoint. And 3D was just something that, you know, we talked about in the beginning. Should we shoot it in stereo or do it as a post-process? And he was like, you know what, I've got enough to worry about, let's do it as a post-process. So it was just something you need to have to juggle. We didn't need it any more complicated than we already had it.
You find that 3D, Taylor?
I am, like, you know, when it's done right, absolutely. And from what I've seen a couple other scenes as well, and I love it on this. It's the type of movie, obviously, that it should be. And when it is done right, it's great.
Were you relieved it wasn't shot in 3D, or were you slightly disappointed? Is that actually like a full spirit of the camera, or pointing something at the lens?
To be honest, it really didn't factor into my prep.
Come on. Right, we had a guy, sorry, not all the
It's a two-parter, if that's okay.
Oh, no, I'm out.
The first question is regarding the name of the film. I know it was changed from John Carter of Mars to just John Carter. The reason for that, and also a question for Taylor. How was it from going to a much more smaller production like Friday Night Lights to a much more bigger scale like John Carter?
I can answer the John Carter a bit. John Carter Mars, it's truly an origin story. When you see the film in its entirety, you'll really understand why it was that way. Story-wise, he earns that title, which is something I am a huge fan of, especially with that, I'd say the last couple minutes, it's pretty great. Oh, the second part was what? Oh yeah, I just act harder. The bigger the budget, the more No, I mean, look, I've done $4 million independents to these and to others that are coming up, and you know, I think that the most and the biggest important thing that I draw is the director, the script, and the character I can kind of envelop myself with. So it's no different.
Any pressure or thought about updating a time period, given that most of the film takes place on a different planet entirely?
No, and I think the team could answer this as well, but again, I think Andrew was going back to the books themselves and trying to be as true as possible to how Burroughs saw Mars back then, and how Burroughs looked at an astronomer at that time named Percival Lowell, and some of his theories at that time that have since been disproven, but that's what Burroughs knew in that time, that's what Burroughs thought, and that's essentially what Andrew tried to bring to life. Same thing with the Civil War story, is kind of the interesting arc of the character. Definitely took place back then, took place in American Civil War, but at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the time period, it's that it's an event in John Carter's life that people can relate to. They can relate to war, they can relate to loss, they can relate to trying to find themselves as well. So I think Andrew's trying to be true to the original books and staying within that time frame.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. So who's going to take that? Lady in the photograph. Just take the mic. Come in.
This one's for Taylor. What preparation did you do to get into the character of John Carter?
Sorry, I interrupted. Is that the... Okay. Well, the body's CG, which was great, because I could just eat anything I wanted. No, it was, a really excessively boring diet. A regimen of around 11 months, 4 and then 7 while shooting. And then the same kind of regimen with training. And then I've said it before, I really just tried to connect to the Civil War. Sat down with a bunch of historians and professors at University of Texas and studied the Civil War, and they gave me hundreds of letters of Civil War, veterans and guys that were writing home, and I learned an incredible amount through that. And you take what you can from those things and apply it when you can. But yeah, that was probably the biggest base I had to draw from, was the honor and the sacrifice that he did and the guilt that he carried for leaving his family, for trying to protect them. So,
Thanks very much indeed. That's all the time we have, I'm afraid. Thanks for your questions. Thanks